helps too.
Will not function in the OFF mode. That works.
So that's what I was. That's
I've been through it twice already.
it's a pretty amazing
One day,
I got
2 day
scheduled
tolls.
to take about half a dozen people I know.
It isn't an amazing experience.
Yeah, it's cool. Really good.
I don't know, but
Calmular with water mixed.
That's what it looks like. It's not, although it's not green.
Hey,
So we continue item whatever it is.
Sorry, Julie. I gave the roofer, and he thinks he's going to be able to basically re-roof that whole section of the house. It's about 400 square feet, and then he's also going to just patch any of the wood shake that looks like it might be leaking. He's going to do all that for $1,000. That's a good price, huh?
I was guessing 12. I told you, I've had him roof. He's done.
But then he told me for my whole house, $11,000. And I was like, yeah, I don't know about that one.
He's done 6 or 7 roofs for our guy. I mean, they are good. They go
Good morning.
rip it off, they fix it, they're gone. I mean, they'll be gone in a day.
He told me, he said he's not going to be able
Oh,
to get
okay.
it until Wednesday probably
Okay.
because of the rain. But I mean, once he gets to it, I think he's beginning. You know, you can see that guy's like, he's good at what he does. Just in terms of being around construction. I mean, he has no fear.
Okay.
Like with the feet not down correctly and those kind of things. So it scares you a little bit, but you can just tell he knows what he's comfortable.
I left him an email this morning, or I left him a message on his phone this morning. You know, welcome to come.
Good morning.
I say advocate. That's
Good.
I just
I have to leave
to me.
right. Okay.
this afternoon.
And it saved me
Yes.
$50 to do it myself.
What was it worth?
And I did a call.
I do, but
Okay. All right.
I got to go too. I'm a little practice.
for old school.
I understood part of that.
So they were just going
I
after me.
used this forever.
Filling, you know, just got weak around the filling. Doesn't bother me.
One day, why is it making noise? It's not supposed to make noise.
Are we all set to go? All right. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to our regularly scheduled Board of Supervisor meeting. If you would please stand and join me for our flag salute and remain standing for a moment of silence. Ready? Salute. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Please be seated. We start this morning with public comments. Anyone wishing to address the board this morning on items which are within our jurisdiction but not on today's agenda are invited to come forward at this time and give us your name and address. So public comment period is now open. Seeing no one walking to the lectern, we'll close the public comment period, bring it back to the board then for item number 2, which is Board of Supervisor matters. I'll turn to my left and Mr. Vanderpool.
I just have one thing to add today. I'll be very brief. I'll try to be anyways. I went to the county health fair that was put on last week by the Human Resources Department and a lot of different departments coming together to work to put on a great event for our employees. Like Supervisor Sheeta commented last week, really everyone always complains about insurance premium increases and all those things. if we go to these health fairs and we pay attention as county employees and actually just see what tools are out there for us and what we need to do to stay healthy, we're going to ultimately end up helping ourselves on the insurance premium front. But it was a really great event that helped increase awareness about health, fitness, even had cancer screenings there. And all these things are very proactive, very important. And I was real glad we as a county were able to divert resources to generate focus on our employees' health. I thought that was very important, and I thought it was a great event, well attended, great turnout, and the Wii bowling was even fun too. So.
Well, I thought you were going to report on the outcome of the week bowl.
Well, if you want to hear that, I won both my matches against the undersheriff and the county librarian. I was going to be very upset if I lost to the librarian, but I beat it.
And now I'm sorry I asked. Okay. Congratulations, Mr.
I
Cox.
can announce that I broke 100.
Was that your golf score?
No, that was the bowling score.
okay,
but
all right.
yeah, that's all I can report. Today, the county's running a series of free flu shot clinics for county employees. Today's at Government Plaza from 10 until 1. I plan on taking advantage of that myself and would encourage others who have frequent contact with the public to take advantage of that. We're expecting a pretty good flu season this year. Last week I attended an event called the LISA Project. I think most of the board members are aware, is put on by a series of groups, and they're all listed down here. The Board of Supervisors and First Five are some of the sponsors. A very well put together exhibit where you go into a building that's broke up into several different rooms, and each room depicts a different type of child abuse that might occur. A very moving program. I know I've already attended a couple other times, taking folks that I know. I see other folks out there in the audience that went. So it's, I think, a good opportunity to bring some awareness to the public of the effects child abuse has, and it encourages folks to, when they see something like this, to report it. As of the first day, I know I was told that they've already been able to report 2 cases of child abuse because of folks going through the exhibit, and there are actually counselors at the end of the exhibit to help people cope with the experiences they might have had, or to help them deal with problems that friends of theirs might have. So I would encourage all to go. It's open Thursdays through Sundays. During the week, it's open by appointment only. The phone number is on the posters. I understand the fire chief from the city of Visalia went through Thursday night and turned around and sent a memo to all of his firefighters in the city of Visalia to start lining up and start going. So I know they are opening especially for 60 or so firefighters that work with the city of Visalia to take them through. And you only go through in groups of 5, so if you want to take a large group down, you might want to call ahead of time. But a very worthwhile project. It will be open Thursday nights as well for during the flea market downtown. So very good project, and I would encourage all to support. My last thing is, most of you know, my mother-in-law passed away last Tuesday, and my family appreciates the outpour of support that's come from our friends and the board and those who know us. As you know, she was ill for quite some time, bedridden for the last year and a half. So it's still is unexpected, but she's no longer in pain, and but we really do appreciate the outpour and support from the community. That's it.
Mr. Sheeta?
Last night, I attended the town meeting in Three Rivers, and it was very informative. Next Tuesday, there's a scheduled burn, and it's being put on by CAL FIRE. It'll be in Grouse Valley. It's over 1,000 acres. So you may see immediate plume of smoke coming out of the near mountains and the foothills. It's going to be a high-intensity burn. It's one that they plan to do in one day. So they're looking at getting approval from the Air Board, and if they get approval, they will have that burn next Tuesday. Another item that came up is that something I wasn't aware of. The Colburn School of Music sent 10 students up to Three Rivers for a week for a retreat. And they brought these 10 students in from all over the world. And they're young adults and children who are exceptionally gifted in music. And they had a concert up in Three Rivers, which was a packed house. And Colburn is so impressed with Three Rivers as they're looking at expanding the camp to 2 weeks next year, and they're looking for a permanent summer home. So Three Rivers has a great opportunity to become a music center for the Colburn School of Music. Now, one of their people there was 8 years old. And he was a violinist and plays the piano, and he came in from Japan. But there were students from all over the world, and I think it's a great opportunity. I hope we can capitalize on it in Three Rivers. And that's all I have.
Thank you. Mr. Ennis?
Was the reason that you really capitalized on that one student because he was Japanese? Is that?
Yeah, and he's much younger than me.
I also attended the health fair, and I was very impressed, and I feel like that this is something we need to be looking at, not just one day of the year, but every day, and look back at your family history. You've got a roadmap to go by. If you got heart disease, if you got diabetes in your family, you need to look at those things and plan your future on that. And if you're diabetic is in your family, make sure you try to keep your weight down and exercise. Same way with heart disease. So runs in my family, both of those diseases do. So I'm constantly aware of those things. So, but I thought that was an excellent deal. But I think we need to talk about that. We need to be thinking about health every day, not just one day out of the year as people out there in our communities. Also, yesterday we had another one of our planning sessions for our Step Up event in Terabella, and that's moving forward. That'll be October 19th, starting at 5 to 7:30 there at Carl Smith Middle School. And looking forward to that event. That'll bring in Terabella, Ducor, and Richgrove. So those are three communities that have all stepped up and said, hey, we want to be a part of this. Also had a meeting yesterday at Lower Tooling, which I chair for Success Dam and the River Channel. I heard some rumors yesterday I didn't like about Success Dam. Hopefully they're not true, but the rumor is that we're just going to kind of stay where we are. They're not going to let us store much more than what we've been storing, maybe just a little bit more. Maybe they will put some money in to buy the trailer park, and anybody that would be in harm's way if we have to make big releases due to a flooding situation. But I'm going to be doing some research on that, checking into it. I hope these are just rumors. I hope they're not the truth. So that's all I have this morning.
Thank you. The latest information is we're hoping that the state budget will be adopted in the next few days, or our understanding is that there seems to be consensus among the leadership, and we will see. The significance of that is, of course, that as a county, much of our funding comes from the state of California for our Health Human Services Agency, and also our road projects. There's a state component of that, and our projects are in danger of being stopped or prevented from going forward if we don't get state funding back in place. So we'll hope and pray that that does come to pass. Child Planning Council had a legislative breakfast last week. Some of the board members were there also, and I gave just a brief welcome. But one of the points I made to some of the folks afterwards was their concern was trying to protect funding for child care, which I certainly can appreciate and understand. But I've told folks we need to be thinking always about the role of government changing from one of being additive, where we tend to add programs, we add and we add and we add, and ultimately we end up with these bloated types of government and bureaucracies. And frankly, I don't think it's in the picture of the future that we're going to see these things happening again. Government is shrinking, and it's actually, there are some positives to the fact that it is shrinking. It needs to shrink. And now we need to be very strategic about where do we put our money. We need to redirect funds, not just add new programs. And so I think people need to get a different mindset about government in the future. whether it's local government, state government, federal government. We just can't keep adding and adding without destroying our economy and destroying our society. We have to figure out how to redirect our resources where they're most needed. And certainly times change and needs change. We need to be able to adjust to that. But just adding additional programs is not going to be the solution to the future. So with that, we'll move on to our consent calendar. There is one change on item number 7. We are going to remove the reference to appointing Kevin Marks to the Deferred Compensation Committee. Otherwise, that remains the same. Are there any other items members wish to handle separately? If not, I would entertain a motion.
I'll move approval that we approve the consent calendar with the changes included in item number 7.
Second that.
Motion by Mr. Vanderpool, seconded by Mr. Ennis. Please cast your votes, and the votes are unanimous. Just to point out, even though we just took action on it, that the bid opening results for the road projects on Road 132 and Avenue 296, if you notice, we are closer to our engineer's estimate this time than we have been, so we're getting a better handle on it. Even so, the engineer's estimate was $2,063,000, and the low bid was $1,865,000. So we're continuing to see excellent prices, and it's a great time for us to be doing our construction projects while we have the funding. Item number 20 is a request from the Board of Supervisors to designate the Visalia Arts Consortium as the official arts council in Tulare County through April 30th. And good morning, Jeff Forbes from our staff to present this to us this morning.
Good morning. Agenda item 20, as you said, is a recommendation to designate the Visalia Arts Consortium as the official arts council in Tulare County. The reason it's before your board is the designation is required to receive funding from the California Arts Council's State-Local Partnership Development Program. So the organization that gets the designation will get $10,000 from the state. This year, both the Arts Council of Tulare County and the Visalia Arts Consortium applied to the state for the funding, so we need to have this process to have your board make a decision. When we were notified that 2 groups wanted to receive the designation, myself and Eric Coyne, we met with each group, we reviewed the applications, and they also turned in an additional questionnaire that we reviewed, and all that information is in your agenda packet. If you'll recall, the item was originally scheduled for August 31st, but it was delayed because the Arts Council of Tulare County submitted the wrong application to staff, so we pulled it off the calendar and allowed them time to submit the proper application, and then now we're back today. With the $10,000 in funding from the state, the Arts Council of Tulare County proposes to use a third for strategic planning, which is mandated by the state program. $3,000 for new programming costs, $2,100 for executive director salary, and $1,500 for website development and training. The Visalia Arts Consortium proposes to spend also $3,300 for strategic planning, $3,000 for coordinator salary, $1,500 for a countywide art tour, and $1,000 to help pay for an intern. Staff is recommending the Visalia Arts Consortium receive the official designation. We felt that they have the capacity in place to take on the funds and also work to further the arts in all of Tulare County. They do have the word Visalia in their name, but they've expressed interest in expanding their mission and possibly changing their name to reflect all of Tulare County, and they indicated that would happen whether or not they receive this designation. They have an office, a telephone number, a website that's up, and they have a couple programs that are really good at furthering the capacity of all of the arts organizations in Tulare County through the Grants Resource Manual and a couple other projects. One point is that the designation is kind of the pass-through and will allow one of these groups to receive the funding. It's not county funding. We don't have any ties as to what they do with the funding, but we're just allowing one group to receive this funding by giving them the designation. So I'm going to call up Chad Hallman from the Arts Council of Tulare County. He's going to speak briefly to you, and then a representative from the Visalia Arts Consortium will speak briefly, and then it's back to you for any questions of each applicant and a motion.
Thank you, Jeff.
Thank you.
Mr. Hallman? Good morning, sir.
Good morning, Chairman Worthy and fellow supervisors. Thank you for your time. I'm Chad Homan, 524 North Locust here in Visalia. I have a letter from one of my director representatives from Porterville I'd like to introduce. Do I need to give that
to the clerk, please?
clerk?
Yes, thank you.
And it's nice to see you all again. You know, I've been up here before. And I'd like to start by saying that we have a wonderful past of serving the county. The Arts Council of Tulare County was created as the organization to serve the residents in regards to cultural arts here in the county several years ago. And we've done that several years since. One of the things we've done, you may have seen the sculpture down there in front of the old Gottschalks that was put up. That was part of the program to bring public art to the county of Tulare, along with the sculpture that's at COS, the big rings. People may not know that that was done through the Arts Council. In fact, we have a great history of serving the people of Tulare County. We are a private nonprofit, not a membership nonprofit. And there's a difference. What we found out is that when you have a membership nonprofit, you tend to serve the members. Well, our members are the residents of Tulare County, who we've been serving for a number of years. And that includes, most importantly, the children of Tulare County. For over 20 years, we've run the Artist in Education program, which sends dozens of artists to the classrooms, serving over 1,000 children each year and putting smiles on their faces. That's thousands of children, which we've taught your children well for a number of years. Also, since 1997, we've been managing the art and photography exhibit at the Tulare County Fair, where over 100,000 people come each year. We show over 1,200 exhibits there every year. Plus, we do numerous other events. We've started the Art in the Alley, which for 3 years is going on now, where we started with 6, 7 booths. We're up to nearly 30 booths now of people that want to come and show there. The First Friday's Art Tour, I was just looking over notes lately, we started with 6 or 7 people wanting to be part of that. We're now up to 27 potential venues for that. We've done numerous things for the county. We've given out small grants, which are similar to SBA loans, only they're not charged back for that. Most of everything we do is free, including the art and education program. We continue to do those. We have other things in development. We have developing programs to bring plein air painting to the children in various parts of the incorporated cities. Well, they'll paint for an afternoon and they'll walk home with their own painting. That's for free. That'll be starting later this spring in Exeter and go from there. In Porterville, we're developing a program with our artist representative, Fernando Medina, where he's worked with the city to get reduced fees, where all the booths are supplied free to the artist, and they're getting free food and drink from a local concessionaire. We formed a board called the Mayoral Representative Board, with mayoral representatives, some mayors and the representatives themselves, to collaborate with the other mayoral representatives to pass on the same sort of programs to the other cities. So you can see we're very busy and interactive with the other cities. We also want to bring an independent film festival here to the area between Tulare and Visalia to showcase the films that have been done by local filmmakers, such as the Downs brothers, who I'm working with Bobby Downs, and the films that Lon Hanna has been in, and some others. So that's very important. But all these things would be truncated and the funds taken away from those efforts if we did not receive this money. Another thing about this group, being private, it was started years ago by a group of concerned citizens, including Ellen Gorelick, who's now back on our advisory board, as well as the chairman of the CEO of the Tulare County Fair, Jeff Hines. And we're all working together again. We're going to bring a Festival of Hope 2 to the Tulare County Fair next year, to bring that there. So we have another area to bring the problem of suicide to the Tulare County Fair, where we'll reach a wider audience. Now that would also have funding effects if the funding were cut. But what I'd like to say about this private group is it was the Arts Council of Tulare County that formed the partnership with California Arts Council. It was the Arts Council of Tulare County that found those funds. It was the Arts Council of Tulare County that brought those funds back to the county. It was the Arts Council of Tulare County that shared those funds. It was the Arts Council of Tulare County that made this Board of Supervisors aware of those funds. It was the Arts Council of Tulare County that made the Visalia Arts Consortium aware of those funds. So I think a group that found the bacon, brought home the bacon, deserves to share in that bacon because we're the ones that did that independently. I think a government would be proud of a group that went out without government resources and did that for them. And that's why I think we deserve to continue to be that organization, because not only do we have a proven track record of these programs, we are building upon that. We continue to serve the public, and we do it well. We make mistakes, of course, like everyone else. But like Edison said, when he was questioned about the 1,000 mistakes he made in trying to get a light bulb to work, a reporter asked him, "Didn't that bother you?" He says, "Why, madam, I didn't make 1,000 mistakes. I learned 1,000 things it takes to make a light bulb work." Well, we're learning what it takes to make a better art organization here for Tulare County, and we'd like to continue to do so. And one other thing, I think, correct me if I'm wrong, didn't Visalia Arts Consortium get another $30,000 from Visalia last night to continue their activities? And aren't they already getting their ED salary paid for, an office space from Visalia, and a website from Visalia? We're getting none of that government assistance, so it doesn't seem logical to me that all the government money should be put into Visalia's pile. I think it would be fair for the Board of Supervisors to stand by an organization that for several years has stood by them and their residents and show that, hey, we get together, we support our own, that is the true Tulare County spirit. Indeed, that is the spirit of America. So thank you for your time, and I appreciate your consideration.
Thank you, Mr. Holman. You are an excellent spokesman for your organization.
Thank you. So questions will be later, right?
If there are any questions? Any questions? No?
Questions now.
Nope. Okay, thank you. Mr. Williams? And you can use this microphone over here if you like, Mr. Williams.
Good morning, members of the board. My name is Donald Williams. I reside at 2026 South Kane here in Visalia, and I'm here this morning as the chairman of the Visalia Arts Consortium. As a consortium member, I represent the Enchanted Playhouse Theater Company, president of the board of that particular organization, which presents live children's plays throughout the year. Those plays are seen throughout the county by school children, so we are obviously a county organization, not necessarily a Visalia organization. Before I start, I do want to commend Chad and the Arts Council of Tulare County because of the programs that they do have, the work that they are doing, and I want to say that should we be awarded the designation as the county arts organization, it's not our desire that those programs go away. We do want to see those programs continue, and we would like to work with Chad as much as we could to see that that work continues and that grows. We were formed out of a desire to see all of the arts venues, the arts organizations, the arts individuals in the city of Visalia work together, collaborate, share information, co-promote events so that we can make the public more aware of what's going on. It's often that people would come to a particular event, such as the Enchanted Playhouse, and not be aware of the other things that are available in the city, or come to us for the first time and not be aware that we've been in the city of Visalia for 15 years. And that's because the city, people that live in the city don't often know from one event to the next what can take place. So we thought that as the Visalia Arts Consortium, working together, getting these organizations for the first time to collaborate, share information, work on getting community grants that can be shared, that we could help support arts and culture in the city of Visalia. We would like to see that happen in Tulare County as well, and that is already occurring in that we have members of various organizations, Three Rivers, Dinuba, coming to our Visalia Arts Consortium meetings on a regular basis. The Arts Consortium holds monthly meetings that are open to the public. We meet at 5:30 on the first Tuesday of every month at the Creative Center. The Arts Consortium has an email list of artists that we're developing, and that is already very large, art organizations, representatives in the city of Visalia, that we keep up-to-date information on about events, When there are calls to artists, that we can send those out to the artists in the area. If there are grant opportunities that one organization becomes aware of, we can share that information with other organizations so that they can apply for those grants as well. Anybody can attend our meetings. Yes, we are a membership group. Annual membership is $25 for an individual, $40 for an organization, but that doesn't mean that you can't come to our meetings anyway and get the information that you need. We have a number of COS art students that come on a regular basis in order to be aware of what's going on, events that are coming up, so that they can participate. The arts organization the Visalia Arts Consortium has developed a list of goals, immediate goals and long-term goals. We've only been in existence as a nonprofit for just a little over a year now, but in that time, we've been able to establish, work through, and actually accomplish a signature event, being the Taste the Arts that happened just last month, which was a wonderful event that saw a number of organizations, actually quite a few organizations, including the Enchanted Playhouse, the Ice House Theater, Downtown Visayans, the Tulare County Symphony, working together to pull off a 3-day event that brought in a lot of people and made them aware of what was available here in our area. So we feel that as the Visalia Arts Consortium, in having a staff member that is paid for, that coordinates a lot of these events, having a regular meeting that is attended by 20 to 30 people on a regular basis that are interested in this kind of thing, by promoting a community calendar, by having a website that addresses the events that are going on, by having a website that highlights and spotlights artists. We already have 40 artists that are spotlighted on that website that are in the area so that people can be aware of these. We feel that we're doing the job that we were set up to do, and we would like to be able to do that for the county as well. To expand our efforts to see these organizations, not just special events going on, not just things that the public can come to, but help the artists and art organizations throughout the county grow. And in order to do that, by being a county recognized organization, we can proceed to apply for other grants that might be used to develop some of these organizations in the county, make them aware of grants that are available now through us, once those funds are available, that they can use to help their organizations to grow. And I think that's the idea behind being a county-wide organization, is to grow the arts throughout the county, not just in Visalia, not just in Tulare, but all of our communities that have these arts and arts organizations, to help them grow and provide whatever resources we can to accomplish that task. So we are asking that the Board of Supervisors recognize us as the county-wide arts organization. Again, I would remind you that we don't want to see what has happened or what events are already taking place go away. We would like to see those continue through the Arts Council of Tulare County, even if it's a matter of bringing them into the Visalia Arts Consortium and working with them and coordinating with them. Whatever we can do to help them, see them accomplish those tasks as well, we would like to see. So I would thank you for your consideration, and again, ask you to recognize us as the Arts Council of Tulare County.
Thank you. Any questions from board members? Mr. Cox?
Just quick, I support staff's process that they went through to do this, being that there were 2 organizations this time, Mr. Chair. I'm really appreciative of both Jeff and Eric taking the time to create that process and to go through that process. And I'm glad to see it happen this way, other than the way it happened last year when we had the one. There's a little bit of confusion, so I do support the way the staff did this, and I do support staff's recommendation also of stating the real short organizational capacity, having watched this group grow and their desire to work out more into the county and create a stronger single unit.
Very good. Mr. Van Poel?
I would just like to make a comment. Maybe I can ask a question of both organizations. I'm curious what efforts have been made on a countywide basis in the unincorporated communities as well. I think it's very important that we target the cities, but what efforts have been made to bring the arts and increase art awareness in the unincorporated communities of Tulare County? So I don't know if Jeff, from the staff perspective, if you can address what organization has that track record, or if any of the organizations want to answer that.
While they're walking up, Mr. Chair, and I take it to, I know we had a opportunity to participate in the taste of the arts, and I know Eric worked very hard on that with the Office of Education. I was one of the judges of the art contest, and we had art coming in from all over the unincorporated communities of the county. So I know just that event that we participated in with the Arts Consortium was very successful. There was over 100. I'm looking for Eric to know. I know there's over 100.
Now, were you a judge of artwork or a judge of the food? That makes a difference.
You know, this is going to sound funny. There was no food.
Oh,
It was artwork depicting food. So
he was a crabby judge.
I was a crabby judge.
Gentlemen, please come forward if you could respond to that.
Well, I can say that our artist and education program has reached the unincorporated cities for over 20 years, and so does the fair, the art exhibit at the fair. And also we had started a program several years ago called Art on a Shoestring, which goes into the unincorporated schools and teaches the instructors there how to give art class lessons for little or no cost. That's a few of the programs that we've done, and now that's one of the reasons we're developing these pilot programs, is in order to start those out and bring those into the unincorporated areas of the county and grow from there. That's why this money would be useful, because we have such limited funds and we've been running on an all-volunteer basis. So that's how we've helped, and we plan to grow from there into the unincorporated areas.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Obviously, as a new organization, only having been around for a year, there aren't a lot of opportunities that we've had to date. We do have in the directory that we've been assembling together for the state directory of artists and art organizations. Those are representative of organizations and artists throughout the county, including Ducor and some of the smaller areas. We have one member that attends the Visalia Arts Consortium meeting on a regular basis from Dinuba. She's in charge of putting out a newsletter that highlights the artists and art organizations in her area, but she does include countywide organizations as well through the information that she receives from us. In the near future, you mentioned the Colburn Academy, the Institute. They actually were very happy with what took place in Three Rivers. They're going to be working with the Enchanted Playhouse Theater and the Visalia Arts Consortium in the near future. Beginning with the Enchanted Playhouse, we're going to be bringing a series of those artists back into the city of Visalia for mini concerts at the Enchanted Playhouse Theater, and it's their hope that during the summertime, when their academy runs, that they can actually develop something for the city of Visalia or for the county in bringing those artists into local organizations throughout the county. So we'll be working with them on that.
Thank you.
Any other questions, Mr. Rashida?
I have a couple comments. I remember several years ago we went to a CSAC meeting, and this topic was brought up about the state's support of the arts, and I immediately went to the presenter afterwards and found out the county of Tulare had not applied for this $10,000 grant, and there was a lapse in a period of time that we did not receive $10,000 from the state of California, and that did concern me that we did have this lapse in bringing the money in. My main concern about the arts and this $10,000 is I believe this $10,000 is, in my opinion, I'm not sure if I'm correct, but this money is to be used to outreach for the traditional art of painting, photography, and sculpture versus performing arts. So I would hate to see that money being diverted to performing arts when we do have performing arts programs. The other issue is that we have a lot of talented artists in Tulare County, especially in Springville, Triple R, Three Rivers. Lindsay is very active art council. You have Porterville is a very active art council. Exeter. No one's brought these groups together to have a county consortium of people involved in the arts. And I would like to see, as a suggestion just my personal opinion, for us to have a darn county art show featuring all our artists in the county in one place to bring these groups together. And I think once you bring the groups together with the outreach, there are a lot more grants available out there that we have not even touched. And it's very difficult for the Exeter Arts Group or the Porterville or the Lindsay Arts Group to secure fundings from the large foundations out there on their own venue. So that's why a Tulare County broad arts council is extremely important to reaching additional nonprofit private funding. I support the recommendation of the staff. We went through a process, and we need to have an organization that can respond to broadening what we have accomplished so far.
Is that a motion?
I make the motion to approve staff
Second.
recommendation.
We have a motion by Mr. Ishida, seconded by Mr. Cox. Any other comments or questions?
I would just make a comment that, again, my question emphasized the countywide focus, and that's very important to me. I would like to see that, and I think that staff went through a process, and they have a really good idea what's going to happen based on their recommendation. I just know that there really is no track record with either organization in terms of the county-wide outreach, and so once there is a track record established, I'm more in favor of helping to support this cause. So right now I'm going to vote no on this just because I don't see a real county-wide focus at this point in time. So,
all right, so the motion passes 4-1, Mr. Vanderpool voting no. And that will take us to item number 21, which is a request from the County Administrative Office to introduce, waive the first reading, waive the second reading, and adopt as an urgency ordinance under Government Code Section 25-123, a proposed ordinance adding Chapter 13 to Part 5 of the Tulare County Ordinance Code regarding registered sex offenders. And this will be presented by Ms. Bennett.
Thank you. A member of your board requested staff to review options and provide a means to further protect children by limiting contact with registered sex offenders on Halloween. The proposed ordinance addresses these concerns, and additionally, the item presents an opportunity for your board to direct staff to determine if there are any other provisions regarding residency requirements for registered sex offenders in the unincorporated area that should be added to the ordinance code. As this is primarily a legal issue, Deputy County Counsel Barbara Grunwald will present the staff summary.
There are two state laws regarding registered sex offenders. Megan's law deals with publicizing the location of registered offenders.
And only about half of the registered sex offenders whose addresses are known to law enforcement only about half of the addresses are allowed to be publicized. For the other half, it's just their zip code and city and county. The other state law that we have in California is Jessica's law, which deals with residency restrictions and has things like not living within 2,000 feet of a school and that sort of thing. And that law specifically authorizes local jurisdictions to do additional residency restrictions.
All right. Yes.
Mr. Chairman, the ordinance draft that's presented to your board this morning is not original with our office. I believe it was brought to a board member's attention from a constituent who visited Southern California and learned that the city of Orange had passed such an ordinance. And for purposes of your board's discussion or for comments from the public, your board, of course, can modify the proposed ordinance or not adopt it at all and still direct staff to go forward with recommendations regarding Jessica's Law. The County of Riverside has recently adopted a Jessica's Law residency requirement. It does not address Halloween, but it does address the other aspects.
Mr. Vanderpool?
I've got a couple of questions. First of all, just to lay some groundwork, how many registered sex offenders currently live in Tulare County?
I'm not sure if we have someone from the Sheriff's Department this morning. I believe we were told it was approximately 1,000.
I can't remember, I'm sorry.
Okay, approximately 1,000, and then obviously a breakdown between incorporated city versus unincorporated.
That wasn't in the, that was in the unincorporated area. I'm not sure we were told how many live in this city.
Okay, and then have we done would you say a fairly comprehensive survey of other counties and jurisdictions in the state of California in terms of how they deal with sex offender provisions specifically related to Halloween?
At this time that we are aware of, there is one city, the city of Orange, which has adopted the actual ordinance that you have before you. Another city, the city of Hemet, which is considering it, but at this time I don't know, has actually adopted it. A further city in Riverside County considered adopting it and decided they would just send notices to people regarding existing law, notices to registered sex offenders without adopting the ordinance. Riverside County is the only county of which I am aware that has adopted residency restrictions under Jessica's law at this time. A number of cities have adopted other residency restrictions regarding Jessica's law that don't relate to Halloween. A very large number actually have started moving forward in that direction.
Okay, and then one last question. Do we have any statistics, and maybe this is better for the Sheriff's Department, better question for the Sheriff's Department, do we have any statistics related to or regarding the number of violations or crimes committed by sex offenders on Halloween in Tulare County? Do we have any cases or any past history or not?
I don't know the answer to that question, and again, apparently law enforcement is not here. However, if you refer to the websites that are publicized by the Department of Justice and that are in your packet, essentially, at least the sex offenders that are referenced in this specific ordinance, and that's not all sex offenders, that's only sex offenders who've committed sexual crimes against children.
Okay.
In general, have a high rate of recidivism and are, I'm not sure what the correct word is to use, exposure to children or the images of children tends to provoke an urge to reoffend.
Okay.
I am completely unaware of how many offenses may have been committed here or anywhere in the past on Halloween. However, for the most part, the people who trick or treat on Halloween tend to be children, young children.
Thank you.
Other questions, comments from board members? Yes, Mr. Cox.
As I read through this, 3 and 4 says refrain from. What does refrain from mean to you?
Do not do.
Okay. It just seemed like it could have been a little, maybe are not permitted to. It just seems a little weak.
Well, again, this language was adopted directly from another organization, and it's before your board today for consideration. It can be amended in any way you choose. You could simply substitute do not.
Or shall not.
Shall not.
Decorate or shall not answer.
Just seems a little, and I ask that, and then I go up to 1 where we're going to ask folks to put a sign up. What are the ramifications of that? I'm just, as I look at this, no candy or treats at this residence, might as well say, I'm a sex offender, stay away.
I certainly understand your point of view. I'm not suggesting that this is a good or bad provision in the ordinance. I could make arguments on both sides as to why it should or should not be permitted. It is not essential to the other 3 conditions of the ordinance, which I would consider to be the sort of traditional, there are no treats at this residence type of thing. For example, when my husband and I run out of treats on Halloween, we turn the lights off, we don't answer the door, and we sneak upstairs and watch television in the dark.
That's why I look at strengthening the other 3, shall not or may not. The sign is the is the only thing I have an issue with. You know, we're proactive parents. I can walk to the homes in my neighborhood and point to them where the registered sex offenders are, having gone on that site, and only half the sex offenders are listed by address. The others are by zip code. But when
That's
you pull up that
approximate, yes.
website, when you get the balloon and the arrow, you can go on and look at the address and actually the offense that the person was convicted of. And we are talking about just the unincorporated areas of the county. This is not a city ordinance, would be just for the unincorporated areas. I mean, that for me, I would strengthen 3 and 4 and do away with 1. That's just my personal preference.
Comments, questions from?
I would agree with Phil on that. I don't think the sign's necessary.
All right. Let me just weigh in here. I'm actually the one who sort of brought this forward. First off, the council mentioned the fact that many cities have adopted more rules regarding residency requirements for convicted sex offenders. What that does, oftentimes, is push them out in the unincorporated communities, because they will adopt these rules and regulations, sort of like you sometimes see with zoning covenants, where it's very difficult to locate an adult business because guess what? There is no place in the city that will meet those criteria, or it's someplace that's off where nobody is and it won't work. And so when they adopt these more restrictive covenants, then it often pushes people out into the county areas because they just can't find places to live in the cities. To me, Phil, you made the comment, Mr. Cox, that I can go online and I can see who the people are who are registered sex offenders. The point is, not everybody is listed. Some of them are only there by zip code, so we don't know where they live. So that doesn't always work. The other thing is, you are a responsible parent. We have a lot of families out there that don't necessarily have the kind of preventative mentality, perhaps, that you have, that are out there, and they're just taking their kids out there and they're walking or they're driving to places looking for trick-or-treating, and they're not necessarily aware of those things. So I think I look at this statute as being a preventative. This is not designed, we're not out to prosecute people. I mean, there are prosecutorial issues, of course, obviously, if people violate this ordinance, but the real purpose of this is prevention, and it's empowerment of parents and kids that would know, to give them a tool to help avoid a situation. When you have a recovering alcoholic, you don't like to bring alcohol to their front door and say, here, have some. And in a way, that's what Halloween does for this situation, for a person who's been convicted, a pedophile, something of that nature. This is an opportunity which sometimes could push them over the edge. This is an attempt to prevent that from happening. I think the sign is important because what I often see in my areas is that we all know that October 31 is kind of that transitional time in terms of darkness and light. The days are getting shorter, and I oftentimes see people out walking before it's dark. And so turning off your lights in that situation really doesn't have a lot of effect on kids coming to your door. It works well when the sun is down and it's dark outside. But there is that period of time in the daytime and early evening, when people are they're not going to see lights on or off. They're just going to walk up the doors. The sign is the indication then, there's nothing here, go away. So I don't see a problem with having the sign. I understand some of the concerns. In my mind, this morning, KMJ reported an abduction of an 8-year-old child by an adult male. I realize it's got nothing to do with Halloween. It may not have anything to do sexually, but it just demonstrates the fact that our most vulnerable population are our children. I see this as a role of government acting in a preventative measure to try to protect our children. And I support the entire thing as a setup. And I agree with what we said, Supervisor Cox. I think shall not versus refrain is a stronger language. I think we should have that in there versus refrain. But I think we should adopt this. And I think, if there's a problem with it, we can adjust it accordingly in the future. But I think as of today, what we know about circumstances and situations, this is an appropriate action for the government to take, and especially for our local government. And I know that Michael Seltzer's here from the Public Defender's Office wanted to address us on this matter, and there may be others that want to as well. And I encourage them to come forward and give us their thoughts. Thank you.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman. Good morning, members of the board. I appreciate the opportunity to address you on the statute. I've had an opportunity to study it, not exhaustively, but in some detail. I'm recommending, from my perspective, as one who may be called upon to defend individuals who are found in violation of this proposed ordinance, which would be a misdemeanor under the County Ordinance Code, I'm recommending that the board proceed with caution for a couple of reasons. I think it was Supervisor Vanderpool who asked the question about statistics regarding offenders on Halloween, and I can answer that question definitively. The number is 0, none, not one. There is an article that was published in winter 2010 by the Hastings School of Law dealing with related issues, and it concluded that the idea that sex offenders are more active on Halloween is based upon urban myth and legend that is very similar to poison candy myth and legend for Halloween, which, by the way, there is a reported case in Texas where the individual, it was not random, the individual was trying to poison his own child, ended up, unfortunately, lacing pixie sticks with cyanide. He ended up being executed. That's the only reported incident. It's not random of passing out candy, for example. Razor blades and pins in candy have turned up occasionally. They have been more prank, not, again, large-scale random incidents. And so the underlying premise that this is being adopted as an emergency ordinance under Government Code Section 25123 requires that there be some imminent public harm. And I suggest to you that there isn't. There is no indication that sex offenders are more active on Halloween than any other time. And while it may appear logical that that would be the case, the facts don't support it. And so what the Hastings Law Review article concludes is that, and I'm quoting now, and this is actually related to parole conditions, not specifically to this ordinance, but to parole conditions related to parolees on Halloween. It says, since no sex offender-related incidents have ever been reported on Halloween night, such displays of supervisory power address the fear of crime more than the risk of crime, unquote. And so I would suggest that, first of all, there is no urgency. Secondly, if you conclude that there is some imminent danger to public safety, then you need to really ask the question of whether this falls within that provision of Jessica's law that talks about more restrictive residency requirements. Jessica's law deals specifically with residency, who you can live with and where you can live, not these other kinds of conditions. And so I would suggest that there's a possibility that under Jessica's law, this kind of statute's not appropriate. Now, the law the ordinance that is being before you today, presented to you before you today, is based upon a law in Missouri. The only courts that have dealt with this statute is the Missouri Supreme Court and a federal district court that is in the same area in Missouri. That court, the Missouri Supreme Court, under an almost identical statute, if not identical, said that it could not be applied retrospectively or ex post facto to offenders who were required to register at the time, prior to the time that the ordinance was enacted. What that means is if that's correct, and I'm not suggesting that the California Supreme Court would hold likewise, but the only guidance that we have anywhere in the nation is that it can't be applied to an individual who is required to register prior to the date of the enactment of the, in that case, the state statute. And so right out the bat, I think that there are serious questions of whether or not the statute is constitutional, at least as it's applied to individuals who are currently required to register. There are also issues, I feel, with due process and real notice to offenders. There are First Amendment concerns with the sign as well as with the decorations. I believe that, and Supervisor Cox pointed out one aspect that the statute is vague, and that is specifically with this language about that's not clear what it means to refrain from, and I agree with that. I think it is vague. But there are also vaguenesses in what's a Halloween decoration. If I have a wreath on my door or a pumpkin on my doorstep that's not a carved jack-o'-lantern or something, is that a Halloween decoration? Is that something that's forbidden under the statute? I think that it suffers from that as well. There are lots of problems with it, and so I would recommend caution. It is correct that the City of Orange actually adopted the ordinance that's before you. The City of Paris rejected it even after they removed the sign piece of the legislation, or the proposed ordinance. They concluded that the sign would do no good other than to potentially be like a scarlet letter that saying, as Supervisor Cox pointed out, a child molester lives here. And if you're worried about imminent public safety and peace, it seems to me that it could in fact have the opposite effect. The only other city that I'm aware of that considered the ordinance is San Jacinto, which also rejected the proposal very recently. All of these ordinances were introduced, I believe, this year between August and today's date. I'm not aware of any county that has actually adopted such an ordinance for the unincorporated areas. I don't want to overstate my case. I don't want to understate my case. I just think that these are things that the board ought to be aware of in considering adopting an ordinance like this. I understand that there is, it's not popular to, when I used to do jury work, I said, how many people are in favor of robbery? When defending people, I mean, nobody is suggesting, nor am I, that child molestation is a good thing, or that child molesters are fine, upstanding citizens as a group, and that we don't need to be protected from them. I'm not suggesting any of those things. What I am suggesting is that a statute like this, an ordinance like this, may give people a sense of false security. It really doesn't accomplish a goal for which there is a real problem. And with respect to recidivism rates, counsel did mention something about that, and I wanted to point out something because, again, I think that this is also based on myth. The largest study of recidivism of sex offenders was done by the United States Department of Justice. It was released in November of 2003, and you can find it on their website. It's called Recidivism of Sex Offenders, released from prison in 1994. It was the largest comprehensive study of the release of sex offenders. It showed a couple of very interesting things that I think as citizens it's important for us to understand. An individual who has been, the greatest predictor of reoffending of sex offenders is prior arrests for sex offenses. An individual who has one or more prior arrests for for child molestation is 7.3% likely to be arrested for a new sex offense. If you only have one arrest for child molestation, you have a 2.4% chance of being arrested for a new sex offense. If you compare that to the overall recidivism rate of felons in general, that's 68% of general felons will commit a new felony. 68% to 7.3 and 2.4%. If you look at overall arrest rates, where you compare non-sex offenders for all offenses, 68% rearrest rate. For sex offenders for all offenses, including sex offenses, it's a 43% recidivism rate. And so when you look at the actual numbers, when you look at the actual statistics, yes, there is recidivism among all offenders. Yes, there is a significant problem. But the question is this an effective means for dealing with those issues? And I would just urge you to proceed with caution, and thought that it was important for me to share my views with you.
Thank you for being here.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
Clarify one thing that Mr. Seltzer said, and I'm sure was inadvertent. This is not an emergency ordinance. This is an urgency ordinance. Your board does not have to find that there is an emergency. Your board has to find that it is in the best interest of the public to protect the public health and safety, that action be taken outside the normal schedule for adoption of ordinances. So I just wanted to clarify.
Appreciate that. One thing I was just going to comment, I appreciate Mr. Shelter being here. The fact that things are tried, he made the comment about recidivism, the actual trials brought against people who are convicted or arrested, does not mean they don't happen. Recently, I'm aware of an event in my community where an individual, and of course this wouldn't apply to this person because they weren't convicted, but the point was this person turns out had a history of 40 years of abusing children, and it went unreported. the fact that things are not reported doesn't mean that they don't happen. And again, if it isn't happening, then no harm, no foul. What we're trying to do is prevent that one from happening. If it's an 8% recidivism or 4%, if it's my child that's affected by this, then this is a very minor infringement on people's personal freedoms to prevent something from happening, which is a very egregious crime towards children. I believe that we should take this step and do it. And, you know, again, I understand there are concerns, there are issues. I see this as being preventative, and I still think this is an appropriate work of government, local governments particularly. We don't really pass many ordinances because most of our things come from us from the state of California, from the federal government. This is something we can do, our own local government, to help protect our local children and their families. And I think we should take the action, take the step.
Mr. Chair, if I can make one more comment. I agree with the proactive prevention approach of this ordinance. I think it's very important that we act on behalf of our kids, especially coming up on Halloween. We need, you know, even though there are no past cases to evidence this, I would sure hate for that one family to have it happen on Halloween and for there to be a case because of our failed action. I just think that this is a very complex ordinance, and there's a lot of questions that still remain, whether it's talking about the sign or about equal protection, all these different types of issues that need to be considered. And so I would think that maybe a little bit more research would be helpful for us. So that's my one hesitation, but I do agree. I think this is proactive, it's preventative, and it's very important that we do this. I just am a little hesitant because of the complexity.
I will defer to our counsel, but my recollection was that the research has been done. There isn't a lot. As I said, this is something fairly new. There's a limited amount of information about this, so if you're kind of on cutting ground, you're not going to find a lot of research available to it. But
substantial research has been done to the extent possible. There are cases in California regarding Megan's Law and the registration requirement. As yet, there are no cases interpreting the local regulation section of Jessica's Law. So we can only extrapolate from that. This assumes, of course, that anyone is actually charged under the law, as opposed to people being advised that the law is in effect and voluntarily complying with it. That's the point at which some of the criminal protection issues that Mr. Seltzer spoke to you about are there. I'm not sure what additional research would be of benefit. We, of course, are happy to do whatever your board asks of us, but cutting edge would be correct, I think. And again, your board has the option of modifying the ordinance that's before you today and adopting it as presented, not adopting it at all, and or directing staff to go forward and come back to you with recommendations regarding other local residency restrictions that you may wish to enact under Jessica's Law for sex offenders in general. I do want to point one thing out in that this ordinance doesn't cover anybody who's ever been charged with a sex offense. It only covers people who have been convicted of sex offenses against children. So it's not someone who had to register because in 1955 they were exposed of indecent or convicted of indecent exposure or something like that. It would not cover everyone who's required to register. It covers people convicted of a specific crime. And you could, and I'm going to turn to Ms. Grunwald, I'm correct in that, am I not?
Yes.
You could change that and make it all sex offenders, but again, this specific portion of the ordinance only deals with child molesters. The further recommendations, future recommendations that might come back to you might deal with entirely different classes of, and you know, that's all the only comment I can make. Cutting edge is fairly accurate.
that respond to your concerns?
Yeah,
about
I mean,
research?
that brings it up and helps to explain it a little bit. I just, obviously I don't want to advocate for sex offenders or criminals against, offenders against children, and we need to protect our children. I just still am a little hesitant just because of all of the aspects of the ordinance and making sure that we're not getting ourselves into some difficult situations that may come in the future because of it. But I see the point. I see the issues on both sides. It's just a kind of a tough.
I think, in my looking at it, is that it's pretty straightforward and it's really a pretty simple statute. There can be complex legal issues that sort of revolve around it, but what we're asking people to do is very straightforward. It's very simple. And to me, we should move forward with it. I was thinking of one other thing that was brought up about actions that, as far as statistics and information about that night. Let's not forget that initiation of contact sometimes leads to further problems. And so what Halloween does is, even if nothing occurs Halloween night, the fact that it initiates a process whereby contact is made between a young child and a pedophile is something that could lead to future problems. The other thing I would point out to the board is that as a county, we have a lot of large unincorporated communities. So we say this doesn't apply to the cities, but Cutler Rossi, if it were incorporated as a city, would be the next largest city after the city of Dinuba in the county. We have a lot of unincorporated communities where they're urban type of settings, and we know that Halloween trick-or-treating goes on. It's not like we're talking necessarily about out in the country someplace, isolated homes. These are urbanized type settings for the most part that people are residing in. So I think I've made my point, I hope, and it's up to the board to make a motion and decide where we're going to go from here.
Sure, I mentioned strengthening 3 and 4. I mean, I could see 3 saying, shall not decorate the exterior of his or her residence with Halloween decorations. 4 being, shall not answer the door to children who are trick-or-treating. So I could support having those a little bit stronger, but I still do not support the sign, the number 1. So I will be first, not knowing where it will go, make a motion to remove 1 and amend 3 and 4 as I had previously stated.
Okay, we have a motion by Mr. Cox. Is there a second?
I would second that.
Okay. Any further discussion? Please cast your votes. And the motion, mine should be a no. Well, I don't know why mine's stuck on yes, because I usually vote yes on things, but that actually should be a no vote. So the motion does pass as presented by Mr. Cox, and the vote is 3-2. Pete Vanderpool and Steve Worthley voting against it. So that will be the ordinance adopted and move forward. Okay, that brings us to item number 22, and that's to accept a presentation from the planning branch from the Tulare County Resource Management Agency of the changes in progress made in the permit center.
Good morning, Chairman Worthy and fellow supervisors. My name is Mike Washam. I'm a planner with the RMA. I'm currently temporarily assigned to oversee and coordinate the permit center's daily operations. I'm here to present a status report on steps we've taken to improve customer service recently. I'm going to give you a brief overview of who we are, what we do, and those steps that we've taken to improve customer service. The primary responsibilities of the permit center are listed here, and it's obvious that building permits are what first come to mind, but over half of the people that come into the permit center and the vast majority of the phone calls and emails that we get are not related directly to permits. There are people checking on what's allowed on their property, people checking on what's allowed on their neighbor's property. The post office contacts us for verification of addresses. That's another assignment that the permit center does, is assign addresses throughout the county. We have realtors, appraisers, title companies always calling, needing information regarding building permit histories and whatnot, and it's becoming more and more so in this environment of the financial tightening. So lenders are requiring more information, more documentation lately for their loans. We also, just as an example, last week I was on the phone with a CHP officer down in South County along Road 56, I think it was, that he had two neighbors squabbling over parking their agricultural vehicles, and they were saying, one was saying it was private property and the other was saying it was the right-of-way, and had to go research and find out what the right-of-way width was at that particular location. So the permit center does a vast things over and above just issuing building permits. These are the numbers for 2010. These are based on year-to-date and then projected out for the remainder of the year. You can see that we do have a quite high volume of phone inquiries and emails, as long with the people that come into the county office in person. One thing I like to point out is the median wait time for people is 2 minutes or less once people come into the permit counter. Within the vast majority are served within 2 minutes. The average wait time is 5.7. The discrepancy there is that oftentimes a person needs to speak with, say, the chief building official or something, and he might already be working with another customer, so it will take a matter of a few minutes to get. That's why there's that. But relatively quickly, everybody is seen as they come in. I'd like to just briefly go over a flow chart of the permit, the building permit process. It's not as simple as just walking in. Why can't you just give me a permit? Although we do have a number of over-the-counter permits that we issue, there's also a review process for more intensive permits. Person will come into the center, submit an application, and the planner will take a first review on it, see if it's an allowed use, check for setbacks, zoning requirements. Then also we have a close relationship with a couple of the cities, Exeter and Farmersville. We process their building permits for them. And then if it's located in the national park or infill in the forest, we have to work in relationship with those agencies. Once it's approved by planning, oops, sorry. Once it's approved by planning, it will go on to our building department. Kevin Sullivan is our plan checker. Then from there, requiring further inspection, possibly depending whether it's what type of construction it is. Our fire needs to look at it. This is Al Miller, he's our fire warden. And then if the location is a small site within an urban development area or in a flood zone, Public Works also has to review it. This is John Moser, our Public Works reviewer. And then anything to do with septic systems, if there's bathrooms, water, wells, it'll go to our environmental health department, and Allison Shucklian will look at it and review it. And then if it's in a redevelopment area, obviously the redevelopment agency will look at it. I wasn't able to get a picture of Don Stevens. He's a little elusive, but I'm sure he's down at Government Plaza working hard right now. Goes back into the permit center, and school fees are applied to it if required, and then the permit is ready to be issued. As you can see, it's a quite more intensive process than just walking in and getting something done right away. The recent progress that we've made, we've implemented the Customer Bill of Rights, we've changed the hours of operation, and we've made some revisions to the procedures that we do. This is the Customer Bill of Rights that we've implemented. Clearly states the RMA's commitment to improving customer service, and it gives the customer expectations of what they can expect from the permit center. It's posted prominently in the office, and it will soon be put on the permit center webpage on the county website. The change of hours has allowed the staff planners to review building permits and research and respond to inquiries from the public. It's allowed the staff also to perform other administrative responsibilities. Customer service isn't only the hours available to receive building permits and questions, but it doesn't mean anything unless we're able to respond to those things and get those things processed in a timely manner. So it's important to realize that. And the proof, so to speak, is in the pudding. This photo is of a typical representation of what permits were on a daily basis remaining to be reviewed. We might have 20 to 30 permits at any one day. This is prior to the change in hours. And this is what we're looking at currently. After about 5 or 6 weeks after we've changed our hours, allowing staff the time to process the permits, we're looking at a handful of permits as opposed to the other. Of course, the change of hours is not the only thing that has improved the permit center efficiency. We've implemented a one-and-done planner review process, which has eliminated one step of the process. We've consolidated all of the public inquiries, the emails and the phone messages into one centralized location, and we've made better utilization of our office assistants. We've increased their responsibilities. They're now assigning school fees, which has eliminated one step in the planner review as part of the one and done. They're also filtering the phone inquiries and the zone email inquiries to get a quicker response and again centralizing. And we've implemented other measurements to monitor our performance, because to prove if we're improving, we need to have something to measure it against. So like I showed earlier, the median times visitation to be seen. We've implemented when people come in, we sign in, much like a doctor's office, the time that you sign in, and then the person counter will sign in when he's being seen, he or she is being seen, so we get a time of how long it takes. Going forward, we're looking to increase our online capabilities, and we're going to further streamline and simplify and speed up the review process. And we have weekly training sessions. We're going to incorporate more customer service training into those training programs. That concludes staff report. If you have any further questions.
Thank you. One of the things that I'm sitting on the San Joaquin Valley Air Board, we get a report monthly that speaks to the number of pending permits, the number of permits that have been processed and completed, the number of outstanding ones, and whether they're over 30 days, 60 days, 90 days. Would it be possible to get a report such as that from your department? It would sound like that's an effective way of kind of measuring. I appreciate the photographs, and it's like, a picture's worth 1,000 words in terms of here's a stack and now here's a stack. Right. But I think it would be good to have that kind of numerical information for your benefit and also for us, so that we can see what kind of progress is being made.
Most definitely. We're working on that. Our computer system is fairly antiquated, and we're trying to make use of what we have and the technology tools and take the best advantage. So we're currently working with IT to try to format more usable reports. We have reports that aren't very useful right now, and we're working with IT to make those into more useful reports that give data that is helpful going forward. Right now, we gather all the information, but if it's not, refined and organized, it's just a stack of reports.
I'd like to offer up the Air Board as a resource, certainly to contact them. They're very good about sharing their information and how they do things. And I know they've had that kind of a procedure in place for some time. And we recently made an adjustment to it also to expand it somewhat, and it's been accomplished. So, other questions or comments, Mr. Benefit?
I was just going to make a comment that it's nice to see that when you set out with a certain goal, changing and adjusting the operating hours, for example, to see some progress and see some result from the changing of that procedure or process by which the office works by. So good to see that. In the staff report here, I noticed that customer service was mentioned. I think that's got to be the most important concept that's emphasized to staff is customer service, customer service, customer service. And I can tell that it's moving in that direction because the complaints that I've been getting from constituents have gone down. In fact, I've gotten several compliments recently, and I'll pass those on to you at this time to share with the rest of the staff in the Planning and Permit Center, that they've been very friendly. Staff has been very friendly and really been helpful in dealing with the issues that these people are bringing to the counter. So I applaud staff for their efforts and really trying to be customer service oriented and being the #1 priority, because without the customers or taxpayers here in Tulare County, no one here would have a job. So it's very important that we continue to keep that as a high priority. and continue to improve it in any possible way. So thank you for bringing this presentation, and thank you to Jake and staff for all the effort that you guys have made in RMA to become more customer service oriented. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Sheeta wanted to say something?
I've had some complaints recently, but they didn't originate from RMA. And I think it'd behoove RMA, the director, to send a letter out to the other agencies that are in the county umbrella, the other elected departments that are managed by other electeds, that if there are permitting or inspection issues, they should be addressed to the proper department in RMA and not give out information to the client that may be incorrect. And I've had that happen to me twice in the last month, where another department came in and spouted off regulations that weren't correct, and that kind of it showed poorly upon RMA, which was not RMA's issue at all, and it confused the permittee as to your competence on issuing permits or what was required. So I know Jake's not here, but I would like to see that memo go out that appropriate inquiries by other departments should go directly to RMA versus to the client.
And I'm sure it can be put in a more positive fashion to accomplish the objective going out from our department to the elected officials. But the idea of working together obviously is very important. If we're not on the same page, we have some difficulties.
Open communication is a vital aspect of getting anything accomplished in the county, no doubt.
Right. Anybody else? If not, entertain a motion.
I'd just like to make one comment. Yeah, my complaints have gone down too far as individuals, but I still have some friction from some of the engineering companies over in my area. So I won't mention any names, but I haven't researched, I haven't gone to them and been privy to what their real problems are, but that might be something to make note of, that some of the engineering companies over in my side of the county.
We have meetings with engineers on a rare basis to discuss these problems and work. Fred Bruce-Wallace can answer this.
Yeah, thank you, Michael. Mr. Chairman, members of the board, Fred Bruce-Wallace, RMA, Countywide Planning. Supervisor Ennis, with regards to your inquiry about communications with the engineers and surveying community, we've had several stakeholder meetings with the engineers and surveyors to talk specifically about issues they have regarding permit processing, timing, scheduling, and so forth. And we have a meeting scheduled this week with those folks. It's a third meeting, and in the meeting we're going to be having the assessor, the tax collector, some other departments, and it goes to, I think, what Supervisor Sheet was talking about, and that is what part of the county is processing and who's coordinating and communicating. Because when the public comes to the county, they don't necessarily make a distinction between departments or divisions. They're looking at the entire process from beginning to end. And as far as they're concerned, they're dealing with one entity. When we get in our individual divisions and departments, we have our specific responsibilities and so forth. So I think what we're accomplishing now is that interface between the divisions and departments and trying to improve the communication and the streamlining of that permit, of that process, of that review, so that becomes seamless, so that we don't have a herky-jerky process and somebody getting bogged down because of one particular division or department. We're trying to be proactive and want to talk with the surveyors, the engineers in this particular instance, to see how we can improve getting something from beginning to end in the most efficient way possible. So we are working on that aspect of your concern.
We need if there's no other further question or comments, nothing with Mr. Cox. That's pretty good.
I'll make the motion that we accept this presentation.
I'll second that.
Motion by Mr. Vanderpool, seconded by Mr. Ennis. Please cast your votes. Votes are unanimous. We need to go back to item number 21 because there's an urgency aspect to this that requires a 4/5 vote. So it does require,
I wondered, it wasn't
Yeah.
in the report.
yeah.
Well, and
so
I
let's-
want to apologize for that because apparently it was listed in some earlier materials and did not make it into your board's final agenda item, or so it didn't alert the clerk either. An urgency item requires a 4/5 vote. Essentially, your vote, your previous vote, passed that section of the request involving asking the staff to come back and bring you recommendations regarding local regulation, but did not pass the urgency ordinance. So you cannot reconsider the item. That is, you can't go back and you have to sort of bring it forward again and see what the vote is.
But we can do
That
that.
new
We can do that
information.
now. It's not
Yes.
like that. Yeah. So what I would like us to do is go back to that item, request a new motion, and you can restate your motion, Mr. Cox. And I will go on record as saying before the vote is taken, I will vote for it, so we have the 4/5 vote. My reason for voting against it before was, of course, I wanted to have the entire ordinance adopted as it was presented and modified. If you would please make that motion again, and we'll go through that process.
Yeah, I would make the same motion I made before, modifying the language in 3 and 4 and removing item number 1.
And a second by Mr. Ennis. Any further discussion? If not, please cast your votes. And the votes are 4-1. Pete Vanderpool voting against. Thank you. We have items for closed session, council, this morning.
We do, Mr. Chairman. We have items A through H. I do want to note item G is the evaluation of your CAO, and he has been performing his civic duty as a juror in the county of Fresno.
We can talk about it behind his back then.
We are reliably informed he's expected any minute. And I do not anticipate any announcements.
All right, very good. Thank you all for being here this morning. We'll go, the board is adjourned to closed session.